Okay, here's my issue. I understand what the person is saying. I think a lot of Black Americans feel some type of way, especially now with the diaspora wars and this whole delineation thing that's going on, where we are trying to separate things culturally. It reminds me of that outrage for Children of Blood and Bone. You know, that cast for that was, I believe, posted on social media like some months ago. And it had like Viola Davis, it had Damson Idris as well, and it had some other names that I didn't really know. Most of them were African actors from England, right? Like most of the actors that you see in a lot of different films in America. With the backlash from Children of Blood and Bone, there was a lot of Nigerians that were saying that this was supposed to be a fantasy world based in, Nigeria. It was supposed to take certain aspects of Nigeria and kind of twist it and make it fantastical, right? Which there's no problem with that to me as a Black American, right? But they have a different perspective as Nigerians. And a lot of them felt some type of way about it because, they said they are not authentic Nigerians. They're great actors, but we need authentic Nigerians. And this also reminds me of like the situation with Tyler, where they said that basically during the Grammys they put Tyler in the Afrobeats category, and that was something that a lot of South Africans had an issue with, and other people of the diaspora. It's just so interesting to me because as a Black American, I wouldn't say that it's demonic. I wouldn't say that Hollywood is trying to reclassify us or they're trying to do an ethnic erasure. I would say that it's always been kind of an ethnic erasure of Black Americans, and we are just now noticing it more. Because at the roots of Black cinema, there has always been Black people outside of America who have represented Black people. Sidney Poitier came from Africa, okay? Eartha Kitt is an Afro-Latina. There's a lot of different types of people who we seen back in the day, at the roots of cinema, who are not part of the Black American identity. That's just not their story. And so I'm not saying that it is demonic, but I am saying that it is something that I think Black Americans are starting to know more and more and more. You start to notice the fact that a lot of these actors come from the UK. And I think that when Black people outside of America, when they see, these things happening, or about their history or about their culture, their films, they demand, rightfully so, that they need authenticity. But the problem is that you can't have authenticity here in America because when you make everybody Black, like I said in other, clips, that in itself erases your unique culture. And so making everybody Black is just not going to be the answer because not everybody who's Black has the same kind of culture, the same kind of heritage, the same kind of lineage. That's just not how it works. And so you have to acknowledge Black Americans as people who have a legitimate culture in order for you to be able to have your culture also represented in a legitimate way. But if you're going to go around and you're going to be in somebody else's culture or you're going to represent somebody else's heroes, then it's going to leave certain people feeling some type of way about it. Yes, we'll still support, people still supported the Harriet Tubman movie, even though, Miss Mama's had those tweets talking about how she didn't really like Black Americans. And she apologized, she did her cute little 1-2, and it was like we moved on and, everything's great with that. But still, it's like authenticity oftentimes with Black American culture, Black American cinema, it's very complicated because again, a lot of these actors are not Black American. That's just not what it is. And I think also something that a lot of Black Americans also feel some type of way about is the fact that, I have wondered what would be the evolution of Black cinema. Considering that we always have all of these different types of actors that are coming from outside of the United States of America, I've always asked what is the evolution of Black cinema? What is the evolution of maybe global cinema? And what could have happened, this is my Pan-Africanist, mindset coming in. What could have happened is we could have had a renaissance of Black cinema where we had different types of Black people and different types of cultures making different types of stories. Especially with fantasy, I feel like there's a lot of different types of cultures that you can pull from and be respectful to it. I feel like there's a lot of different types of cultures and a lot of different things that you can pull from even Black American culture that is being recognized now that you can put a fantastical, scientific, sci-fi spin on. But the problem is that, we have Nollywood, but then in other parts of Africa, they have different types of things where they have film festivals and stuff like that. But it's not something that is really solidified as, okay, this is like an industry, this is a film industry. I'm not saying it's not happening, because there's a lot of different things that are happening in Africa, the continent of Africa, in various different countries where they are exploring the arts, just like anywhere around the world. But it is something where it is not fully solidified to the point where you can transition a lot of the different things that are happening in Black American cinema with a lot of different things that are happening in the continent of Africa, which is unfortunate because there is opportunity there to build and have more and more stories, but there's certain ways that things are limited because of the lack of resources in maybe parts of Africa. And because even though Hollywood here in America is a billion-dollar industry, there are issues where, again, you have to fight as a Black American still to this day in order to be able to have your story put out. As successful as Sinners was with Ryan Coogler, he still had that Variety article. He still had people kind of try to dilute the success of it. Warner Brothers, who's famous for going against original films, who's famous for being racist, but, you know, still supporting Black people. You know, they turned around and they basically was like, oh, this is a great film. And, oh, wow, you know, we're glad that we put, you know, our resources into this film. Even though they basically told Ryan Coogler that if you mess up with this film or if you lose money, then you have to pay us back. That's on you, right? And so it is something that even still to this day, with all the amounts of Black cinema that we've had, all the types of successful Black films that have been in America, there's still this understanding that Hollywood is still a white supremacist industry. And even though, yes, a lot of white liberals are in Hollywood, there's a lot of people that want to create, opportunities for people of color, and they have. It's still evidential that there is a lot of different types of things that are foundational to Hollywood that you still see to this day. These people that are running these production companies, these people that are in the industry, these people that you have to go through in order to be able to get your film out into the theaters, a lot of them, if not, a racial issue, then it's just a money issue, because then, it is a money game. Film is a money business. So I do think that it is interesting, but I wonder if I'm the only one who've had that thought process of like, why can't we, bridge the gap? I know tribalism, I know other types of issues that are going on, but really, people are going to say I'm blaming the Africans too much. It's because with that tribalism, there's also a lack of understanding that Black Americans actually have culture, which you may think, well, that doesn't matter because we heard so many Africans say they've seen so many different types of films from Black people, right? They've seen, hip hop videos and all this stuff. Yeah, but a lot of people have around the world. And a lot of people still say we don't have a culture, which is so crazy when they've seen our culture growing up, but they still don't think that it's a legitimate culture, right? And I think until that understanding that it's a legitimate culture comes to play, until that happens, we'll never really be able to bridge the gap to be able to make more stories where we can see different types of Black culture and have that become something that's mended, where that's its own renaissance of Black film and Black cinema. But, that's just my rant on that. Tell me what you think. Okay.